The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. Francis Scott Fitzgerald.
On energy and information.
So, reality is dual. It has both an objective and a subjective side. Let's try to clarify what each of these sides represents and how we'll interpret these heads and tails of reality going forward. First, let's talk about the objective side of reality, which we'll refer to as the realm of energy. The key property of the realm of energy is a strange and remarkable fact. The total amount of this energy in the universe doesn't change no matter the circumstances. It remains constant and unaltered, completely independent of time. And if you have the patience to stick with me until appendices, we'll discuss time in more detail. Reality, it seems, has this mysterious constant, the total amount of energy in the universe. And no matter what happens, what turns into what explodes or burns or fades out somewhere, this total amount of energy stays the same. In other words, energy is truly an objective, physical substrate. It can't be created or destroyed, only transformed. This amazing property of energy gives us the right to call the objective side of reality the realm of energy, because objective reality can't simply appear or disappear. And now, stepping into the spotlight, we have the concept of entropy, introduced by the German physicist and mathematician Rudolf Clausius in 1865. According to Clausius, thermodynamic entropy, the entropy of energy, is a measure of the disorder, irreversible dissipation, of energy. It turns out that we can never use all the energy in a system to do useful work. In simple terms,
the entropy of energy is an objective measure of its degradation.
We'll come back to entropy in appendices, but I needed to mention it now to build a bridge from the realm of energy to the realm of information, that is, to move on to the subjective side of reality. The fascinating thing is that the concept of entropy applies just as well to the scientific notion of information. However, in this case, informational entropy isn't seen as a measure of degradation, but as a measure of novelty. Let's start by figuring out what exactly this scientific concept of information is, how it differs from the everyday meanings of the term, and why information is subjective, that is, on what grounds it can represent the subjective side of reality. In everyday usage, information is a pretty vague concept. Sometimes it's associated with knowledge or facts, sometimes with data that needs to be stored or transmitted, or with some kind of meaning that needs to be extracted from something. But what does science have to say about it? In the 1940s, the brilliant American mathematician and engineer Claude Shannon developed the mathematical theory of information. Within this theory, as mentioned earlier, informational entropy is nothing more than a measure of novelty, or, in scientific terms, the degree to which uncertainty in a system is reduced.
The entropy of information is a subjective measure of its novelty.
For example, something around us has changed, become different, or appeared. Is it something new, never seen before, or is it something we've already encountered? This very newness is the essence of information entropy. In mathematical information theory, the amount of information is also defined, and it turns out to be nothing more than the degree of unexpectedness, or level of surprise, of an event. So, for instance, the event "the sun rises in the east" is not unexpected for you, which means the amount of information in it is close to zero. But if one day the sun suddenly rose in the west, that would be an extremely unexpected and therefore extremely informative, event.
Wait a second. But what's completely unexpected for me might be nothing new for someone else.
Exactly, and that's just the point. Information is subjective. Another key idea from Claude Shannon's information theory is the concept of text. Yes, written out like this, with a capital T.
Text is an objectively existing physical medium that somehow reflects certain changes in the parameters and/or properties of matter.
In other words, a text includes not only the familiar text made up of letters, words, and sentences, but also the music drifting in from an open window, the strange footprints left in the sand by the river, a photograph of the Martian surface sent back by a rover, the smell of a burnt pie wafting through the house, the bits and bytes of data, note data, not information, stored in a computer's memory, and much, much more, anything that we as subjects can somehow receive and interpret. Now let's clarify what it means to perceive and interpret.
Where have you been today, my cat? At England's court, imagine that. And what did you see at the Queen's affair? I saw a mouse beneath the chair. Samuel Marshak.
As we can see, the cat's only conclusion from her time at the Queen's court was that she wouldn't starve in the royal palace, even if those two-legged creatures didn't feed her. Meanwhile, the Queen's third lady-in-waiting left the event with a single takeaway. High-waisted dresses would definitely be in fashion next year. But the Dutch ambassador was far more alarmed by an extraordinary hunch that the English Queen had a new favourite, and now a major order from the Royal Admiralty was in jeopardy. How is it that all three of these subjects were experiencing the same objectively existing text? The gathering of courtiers in the hall, the polite conversations as everyone waited for the Queen's entrance, the ceremonial appearance of Her Majesty, the formal greetings, and so on. They were indeed perceiving the same thing, except each interpreted it differently depending on their own subjective context. As you've probably guessed by now,
context is the sum of all the subject's knowledge and ideas about themselves and the surrounding world, the universe.
And therefore,
interpretation is the act of analyzing an objective text within the framework of a subjective context.
In our example, the cat's context filtered out everything from the text of the royal reception except for the mouse on the carpet. The frivolous lady-in-waiting's context only left her with the memory of high-waisted dresses. The Dutch ambassador's context led him to the conclusion that the Queen had a new favourite. Let's note for ourselves that with each repeated occurrence of the same event, the amount of information, that is, the degree of unexpectedness, quickly drops for us. The novelty fades, meaning the entropy of information increases, but at the same time, news turns into knowledge and skills. Living beings learn, expanding, enriching, and deepening their contexts. So, what have we clarified for ourselves? Text is objective. It is always some form of data on physical carriers. Context is subjective. It is what we commonly refer to as our knowledge and skills. Information is also subjective, and it essentially corresponds to what we call news or gossip. Information, as well as context, has no physical carrier. It exists only in the consciousness of various living beings. As for the fact that the consciousness of a living being is not a physical carrier, but something entirely different, we'll discuss that later, in the chapter What is God? In essence, the total sum of all individual contexts, knowledge and skills, of all living things in the universe makes up that second, subjective side of reality. From here on, we'll refer to this collective as the realm of information, as you can see, italicized and capitalized. Thus, within the paradigm of the great life, reality consists of two equal and complementary realms, the realm of energy and the realm of information. And life acts as a kind of two-sided membrane, dividing and organizing these two realms. Life, by interpreting the phenomena of the realm of energy, texts, organizes the realm of information. In other words, it learns, it understands how to better adapt to unexpected changes, discovers new laws, and so on. On the other hand, life, using the concepts of the realm of information, knowledge and skills, organizes the realm of energy, initially by developing living nature, and as it evolves, ploughing fields, building cities, constructing factories and nuclear power plants, launching spacecraft, and so on. In summary,
life organizes the realm of energy through information, and organizes the realm of information through energy.
Let's remember this conclusion. It will come in handy in part 2 of this book.
Summary.
Entropy of energy is the objective measure of its degradation. Entropy of information is the subjective measure of its novelty. The amount of information is the subjective degree of its unexpectedness. Text is an objectively existing physical medium that reflects certain changes in the parameters and/or properties of matter. Context is the sum of all the subject's knowledge and ideas about themselves and the surrounding world, the universe. Interpretation is the act of analyzing the objective text within the framework of a subjective context. Life organizes the realm of energy through information and organizes the realm of information through energy.